Hello, happy people of the stats world. Today we are going to be talking about empirical rule with numbers. Yesterday we talked about what the empirical rule was, so we're going to start with that. And then we're going to practice an example with numbers, and then I'll have you do it on your own. So, empirical rule with numbers. Here's just a reminder what the empirical rule is. Between one standard deviation away from the mean, we should have 68% of our data. Between two standard deviations away from the mean, we should have 95% of our data. And between three standard deviations away from the mean, we should have 99.7% of our data. Remember, it's also called the 68%, 95%, 99.7% rules. Now, yesterday we just used arbitrary means and standard deviations to find probabilities. Today we're actually going to be using numbers. So we're going to do an example. So you're going to want to write these steps in your notebook. So I'm going to take a minute here to pause so you can pause the video and write these down in your notebook. So just like yesterday, we are going to use the given mean and standard deviation to sketch a curve. The only difference is instead of labeling it mean and plus one standard deviation and plus two standard deviations, we're actually going with the mean. And since we'll know the standard deviation, we can add numbers. And then just like yesterday, we're going to find the sections that we need to count up for the percentage of the area. We're going to turn that percentage into a decimal to represent it as a probability. Because remember, there are two ways to view a normal curve. That's either to find the proportion of the area or the probability. Really, they are representing the same thing. So here's our example. Again, I'm going to pause so you can write these down, and then we're going to go through the example together on the next slide. All right, so hopefully you have this slide written down. So we're going to be looking at blood cholesterol readings for a group of women. So are they normally distributed with a mean of 172 milligrams per deciliter and a standard deviation of 14 milligrams per deciliter. So when we get to our next slide, our mu is going to be 172. And our standard deviation is going to be 14. So that's what that's telling us. So we want to find the percentage that are between 158 and 186 and readings higher than 200. Now, those numbers don't seem to make much sense now, but they will once we get to the next slide and actually work things out. All right, so remember from our last slide, we said our mu was 172 and our standard deviation was 14. So we can make our normal curve. And our 172 is going to go in the middle. And remember, we go up to three standard deviations away. So I'm going to put in my one standard deviation away. So to find that number, I'm going to add 14. So I'm going to have 186. Two standard deviations away is going to be 200. And three standard deviations away is going to be 214. If you can't see that, sorry about that. I'll put it up here, 214. All right, one standard deviation in this direction, I'm going to subtract 14. So I have 158. And if I subtract 14 from there, I'm at 144. And if I subtract 15 from there, I'm at 130. So this isn't brilliantly labeled, but these are the numbers we can use. So remember, our first question was to find the probability or the percentage that were between 158 and 186. So we want to find what's between 158 is here and 186. So if we look back at our empirical rule, that's asking how much data is one standard deviation away from the mean in each direction. And remember, in each direction, that is 68%, or you can take your 34 plus your 34, so that's 68%. So our probability is going to be 0.68. All right. So that was the first question. All right, so I redrew everything by movie magic. Hopefully that disappears for you. So our second question was, readings higher than 200 are considered undesirable. What percent should be undesirable? So 200 here is here, 2 standard deviations above the mean, and we want to know readings above 200. So that's above 200 and above 214. So if we look back and we want to know the probability that we are greater than or equal to 200, we're going to want the percentage. So we're going to write this one actually as a percentage. So we're going to take our percentages and add them up, and remember to be above 2 standard deviations above the mean. That's 2.35%. And then to be above 3 standard deviations of the mean, that is 0.15%. So if we add those together, we get 2.5%. So about what percent would be undesirable there? That would be 2.5%. So I hope this helps put using numbers with our normal curve into perspective using the empirical rule. So what you do, you just put your mean in the middle, you add your standard deviation 3 times to go to the right, you subtract it from your mean 3 times to go to your left, and then for your questions, you're still going to use that empirical rule from yesterday and add up the sections and make sure if it asks for a percentage, you answer with percentage, and if it asks for a probability, you answer with a decimal. So I hope this helps. I hope you are all safe. I hope you are all healthy. And I hope you all have a great day and a great weekend.